Hey everybody, this is Dr. Cody Rall with Techforpsych. We've got a super exciting product review to take a look at today. The program is called Myndlift and it goes along with the Muse device. And I think that not only is it going to revolutionize the personal EEG device field, but I think that it's going to revolutionize neurofeedback in general, which is a big thing because it could be used in clinics all over the country, all over the world. You get the idea. But real quick, if you're interested in this type of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you get notifications when I upload new content. If you're interested in doing neurofeedback training with me specifically, go to www.techforpsych.com/coaching and fill out the application form, please. All right, let's roll into the content. So we're talking about Myndlift. What is Myndlift? Well, it's a software program and it's got some additional hardware that attaches to the Interaxon device, the Muse Headband. And this is super exciting because it's really taking what Muse has done to a whole new level. All right, to start this video off, I feel like I should talk about traditional bio and neurofeedback, just so you know where we've been, so you know where we're going with this technology and why it's such a big deal. Traditional biofeedback, all you're doing is taking measurements from the body so that you can make conscious changes to your health. Basically, you can measure things like heart rate variability, breath rate, breath depth, skin conductance, and a host of other measures to allow people to, relax their muscles, breathe deeper, lessen anxiety, track recovery after performance in high performance athletes. All those type of activities can be done with biofeedback information and technology. Neurofeedback takes a look at signals specifically from the brain. So you could track electrical signals with EEG, you could track blood flow changes with fMRI, you could track magnetic signals with magnetic encephalography. I've talked about all these types of technologies in my past videos. And traditionally, neurofeedback has used EEG for the most part. People have been taking a look at fMRI and maybe even MEG, but EEG has traditionally been the one that's the easiest, most accessible, and most real time so that you can make adjustments to your mind, to your subjective state to reach your goal. Okay, so traditional neurofeedback, people would have a cap put on their heads with a bunch of EEG leads, and EEG technician, which the physician would have to hire, and it would take a lot of time, would squirt conductive gel into each one of the little leads through little holes to get good bioimpedance so that you could have good EEG signal for the training. Now the training itself, let's take ADHD for example with a kid. The kid comes into the clinic, gets this thing put on their head and they got the gel in there so their hair gets all messy. And then once finally the hardware is set up, they have the computer booted up with the software on there. And typically it's some kind of game. Usually they'll be looking at the screen, and if they hit the right level of concentration, a little character will move through a maze, maybe a flower will open up, or maybe they'll be watching a movie and the movie will become more opaque so they can actually see the movie. But if they don't, if they lose their focus, it becomes clear and they can't see the movie anymore, or their character stops moving. So the objective is to get through these games, and they're set up in a way where you actually, want to be concentrating to achieve the goals. Now, traditionally how this is done, and you can take a look at the series of videos that I have on Techforpsych with more in-depth explanation of this that I'll put links to on the description below here. The EEG device picks up a complex waveform. Basically, when your neurons fire, they're creating all kinds of voltage changes, and this corresponds into complex waveforms of the EEG signal. We use mathematics to break it down into ratios of individual frequencies. The frequencies reflect different brainwave states. Gamma is really high frequency and often corresponds to really quick mental calculations and other processes throughout the brain. And delta, for example, comes out when you're drowsy or sleepy. And there's a whole range of different frequencies in between those two ones. And the goal of the neurofeedback provider is to assess the needs of the patient, maybe even do quantitative EEG where they get a snapshot of the brain activity and decide how they want the training program to be set up for that individual. Maybe the individual has ADHD and they can see that there's low beta activity in the frontal lobe. So what they're going to target is they want to upregulate beta activity in the frontal lobe of the patient. And there can be all different little nuanced ways of doing this, and it is based on evidence in the literature and what the clinician has experienced with their practice, with their experience of doing this. But they can set those parameters on the program and have the patient go through the program and try to reach those goal frequencies in their brain. And what that is doing is changing the subjective state of the patient. It's done through something called operant conditioning. I've talked about this before. So imagine you're on a bike and you're trying to balance and ride the bike. Especially when you were learning, you fell a lot and there was a lot of things going on. So the brain was making all these minute calculations to try to get the balance correct as you rode the bike forward. Well, that's what the brain is trying to do. You've got your reward of the character moving through the maze, for example, and your brain knows that you're trying to do that, but it can't exactly figure out how to do so. So it's changing little things. Maybe you focus your attention there, maybe you relax there, maybe you look here. All these little minute things are going on, and the brain is doing this automatically. The brain is like, it is intelligence, but this is what artificial intelligence does, right? The robot makes all these little different little movements and see what works, and then finally it finds its way down this funnel of finding the exact balance to hit the brain waves that the program is targeting. And that's really what operant conditioning is doing. That's what the mind is doing to the brain. And as the brain is doing this more and more with frequent training, it's finding that sweet spot, knowing that that's where it wants to be, and further solidifying those connections. If you look at the connectome of the brain, it's got all these complex fiber pathways, and we know those pathways get stronger the more that you use them. So if your mind and your brain figure out the sweet spot, it's going to further enhance those pathways by building more dendrites together and wrapping them nicely with the myelin fatty sheathing that enhances the electrical signal. And through this process, the brain is learning how to have better attention. And you can do this with anxiety and relaxation as well. Maybe they have too much beta activity in the brain that's signifying anxiety, and you want to target more alpha theta range and have the person try to reach that stage with a relaxed attention and set the parameters there so that the patient can enter that brainwave state, which corresponds to a subjective state of being relaxed. And the brain, through operant conditioning, is going to find that sweet spot, and hopefully the patient is going to have the communication with the clinician of, wow, I really feel a lot better. That feels good. So the clinician knows, okay, those are the ratios of brainwaves that we're going to target. So it's a very intimate process between the biofeedback / neurofeedback practitioner and the client in figuring out what is the optimal brainwave frequency for that person and guiding them to that depending on their needs. Now, that whole process that I just described is a little bit different than when you get the Muse Headband straight out of the box, right? Interaxon, the company that made the Muse Headband, wanted to bring meditation to the masses through neurofeedback, and I think they've done an incredible job doing so. I think that people have had so many transformative experiences with meditation using the device, because the device really guides them into the subjective experience that maybe they've never felt before and makes them addicted to the process. I think it's just a great thing that makes people want to meditate with and without the device and go further on with it. And the thing with the device and the software is that it comes almost like pre-made, right? They wanted to make it as simple as possible for the consumer to get the device, put it on, and just start meditating right away. And what they did was get EEG data from experienced meditators and like Buddhist monks and other people that are really good at meditation, and analyze that data with machine learning and artificial intelligence to make their software and their algorithm so that it guides people on the meditative experience. Putting little adjustments on the brainwave frequencies like I just described, I don't think would be practical. Like the average person probably wouldn't know which ratios to shoot for, and it would have been too complicated for it to really like appeal to a mass audience. But what's happening now is that these devices are getting in the hands of clinicians, mental health providers, psychologists, psychiatrists, high performance coaches that are using this device with their clients, and it's really exciting. But the flexibility isn't there like the traditional neurofeedback was. And I think that a lot of improvements can be made using coaching just with the software straight out of the box. But what Myndlift has done is made it possible to actually adjust those brainwave frequency ratios so they can take a look at what the client needs and target that. Hopefully they have some bio or neurofeedback training so they understand what they're doing. But it's like incredible, and Myndlift has like a lot of training on their websites that you can learn through that, and they actually have resources to link up with other neurofeedback people that have been doing it for years, so that you know, the coaches can get trained on it and then bring it to their clients. It's incredible, and they've worked closely with Interaxon to bring this to us. And the Myndlift hardware is really cool. So you got the regular Muse device, and this kind of goes to, you know, the extent that they went through to actually get good EEG signal and make sure that there was a flexibility and enough data to use for good traditional neurofeedback, I think is reflected in this. They've got an extra electrode that you plug into the back of the device, and you use a little bit of conductive gel on the end of it, you know, and then you put on the device, and usually, especially with like attention training, the little electrode with a little bit of paste will go on top of your head like this, and then you'll engage in the program. So there's a tablet software that you'll download on your tablet, and the software is very much like those traditional neurofeedback programs that I was talking about before, where there's a couple of games where a character is going through a maze, or you're trying to watch a video and it becomes more opaque the more that you get focused. And with those programs, you can target attention symptoms or anxiety symptoms, and it really just opens up the flexibility of the entire program for experienced coaches to use with their clients or practitioners or whoever else is using the system. Now, the Muse Professionals program just had Dr. Robert Reiner on, who has a practice in New York City and uses neurofeedback. And he's using this Muse device, using the Myndlift software with like over 50 clients right now, right after this came out. And he made some really good points. In traditional neurofeedback, like I described at the beginning of this video, people have to come in, have to have the cap on, get that messy gel squirted into their hair. And it was a laborious process. And just getting to the clinic, it takes time too, right? So, I mean, how many times are you gonna come into the clinic during the week? Maybe like 2, if not at the max 3 times a week. And the thing about learning, the thing that I described before, where the dendrites are coming together and the myelin sheathing is wrapping around, it matters more that you're doing it a little bit each day than if you came in a couple of days a week and did it for longer amounts of time. The body has a way of, you know, if you do it each day, you get sleep during that night, it downloads and rewires the information. So higher frequency is more important than a bigger amount of chunk of time with less frequency. And if you think about it, this entire program is going to revolutionize neurofeedback because of that very reason. One of the reasons why traditional neurofeedback was so not prominent is that the provider would have to go get, you know, thousands of dollars of training. They would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for the neurofeedback equipment. And then to get clients, they had to have really dedicated clients that would come in a couple of times a week, you know, fighting through traffic and then getting the cap put on with all the gel that messed up their hair for the rest of the day. And this just simplifies the process so much because it's really quite easy to slip on the headset, get the one lead with the conductive gel on there that you can't even see. I mean, I just put it on my head and I can't even feel it in my hair. And the client can take the whole system home after getting, you know, maybe an hour or 2 of training in the office and be using it at home every day. And the provider can track what programs that they're doing, how long that they did, how well that they did from their clinic or home. So they're communicating over the internet. The client can do the training from the comfort of their own home as many times with as much frequency as they want. And that is really going to lead to some big changes, I think. And it's really a revolutionary thing. I think that Myndlift has done something incredible on top of the incredible work that Muse/Interaxon has already done. And I can't wait to see how this is going to change the whole field, because clinics are just popping up using this technology. And I think the more that the people are exposed to it, the more prominent it's going to be. And we're going to back off our reliance on things like medications to treat our problems. It's really going to be a great training mechanism for people, not only with mental health problems, but also people that want to, you know, improve their mental performance. So we're going to dive into a little tutorial here where I'm going to show you the actual hardware and software. just so you guys know what it's all about. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to interview the CEO of Myndlift, which is going to be really interesting as well. First off, I should just say that you guys should visit the Myndlift website at www.myndlift.com. They have some great videos talking about their product and some good explanations about what neurofeedback is and how it can help clients. All right, so diving into the Myndlift provider platform first, you can see that there are several different options. You can start a new session with a client. You can add new clients. You can view running sessions with clients that are already doing neurofeedback sessions. They've got a growth toolkit to help you build up your practice. And there's the Myndlift Academy, which is sort of like a mastermind information source for people that want to learn how to deliver neurofeedback. So first off, I just wanted to show you guys the add new client section. So you just click get started here, and then you enter in the demographic information of your patient. And then you have the option of choosing assessment type. You can click next, and you get the client registered, but you can set up these monitoring parameters. If you are tracking certain things like addictive behavior, confusion, emotional instability, these are different things that you can check so that you know that that's what you're following with this patient as you take them through the neurofeedback process. One thing that I should point out is that once the client is registered, they'll get a username, which is their email, and an initial password. Now the provider is getting this password through the provider portal, and what they need to do is give that to the client so that when the client logs in on their tablet into the Myndlift app, they'll enter that password and they'll go right into the training regimen that the provider has set up. So the next thing that you do is start a new session with the client, and once you get in their profile, you can pick what type of neurofeedback session that you want them to do. And this is the really powerful part that I was talking about earlier, is that you can choose to train for attention, or you can choose to train for anxiety. The different options here that are available include the attention training, mood enhancement, performance enhancement, or relaxation training. And as you can see, when you pick these different options, it gives you the targeted brainwaves. So with the attention training, the protocol improves focus by inhibiting theta, high beta, and rewarding something called SMR, which is a brainwave frequency over the motor strip that indicates that the patient's being still and that they're focusing on what they're supposed to focus on. So when they actually hit these brainwave parameters, that's when the game is going to respond to that and reward them. Next, you have the training setup recommendations. So first off, it says that they recommend that the client have their eyes open, and that the reference electrode should be on the central part, CZ, on top of the top view of the head. That's where you want them placing that electrode with the electrode paste on top of their head and plugged into the Muse headset so that it's tracking their brainwaves correctly for the module and rewarding them the way that they should be rewarded to optimize that neurofeedback training regimen. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is that as a coach or a clinician or a provider, you can actually custom make your own sessions for your clients or your patients. Now, you should definitely base this off of evidence in the clinical literature and or clinical experience. You can definitely cause people to get headaches and other side effects if you don't do this properly. So please make sure that you're being responsible if you do have clients and you're using this. I'm just going to randomly pick some things to show you the different options. For example, you can pick different training channels like Ride Auxiliary to FP1, different reference channels. And finally, the protocol. You can do the attention training, inhibit theta, reward SMR, mood enhancement. These are all kind of well-established protocols that have been investigated throughout the years of neurofeedback research. And then you can custom tailor what frequency you actually want the brainwaves to be at for your particular client and set up their individual session. Now, you should base this off of what their clinical needs are, what the literature says is the best evidence for what you're doing, and then clinical expertise. Okay, so I realize I went over that content pretty quickly, but in the interest of keeping this video length manageable, I'm going to save the more in-depth analysis for future videos. For now, I'm going to say if you want to be a Myndlift provider, go to their website and contact their team. They have a great training team that can take you through the different modules and get you set up to use Myndlift with your clients. Now, Now, going into the client's perspective, they will have downloaded the Myndlift app, currently available on Android devices. They're going to pull it up. It's going to sense whether the headband is around or not using the Bluetooth connection. I've currently got the Muse Headband on in this video, and I've got the reference electrode attached as well. That doesn't necessarily have to be on right at the beginning, but you do want the Muse Headband to be around so that the app can connect to it. And once it's connected and goes into the training regimen that's been determined by the provider, it's going to give directions on where to place that auxiliary electrode. And it's really simple. It just plugs into the back of the USB port of the Muse Headband. You put a little paste on there, you put it on top of your head, and you just go forward with the training regimen. It's actually very simple to set up. Once you go into the app, you have these different games you can play, and they're going to respond depending on what parameters the provider set for you. The spaceship one's pretty cool. If, for example, you're training for attention training, the better that you focus, the better that you pay attention, the faster the rocket ship's going to go. And that's kind of like a little competitive thing that you can do in the app. It's got some other interesting options like this alien walking one, and then another fighter one. But tons of games, and there's one video option where you can watch a video, and the better that you focus, the more opaque it will get. So lots of different options. Definitely worth checking out.